Hello and welcome to the first of what will be two presentations for this week. In this first one, I'd like to give you an overview of the module, perhaps indicating some of its origins, certainly identifying the key learning points and outlining the session schedule over the next 8 weeks. At the end, I'll come to some of the suggestions for what you might need to think about to do well in the module. So what are the burning issues in health and humanitarianism at the present time? Well, we need to think about why responses are the way that they are at the moment, consider why they're subject to such scrutiny, and consider where the professionalisation agenda has arisen from. What are the implications for those who are interested in working in this field? So where are we, and how are we going to evolve? I do need to hear some of your reflections on this, and I need your opinions, and I'd like some engagement in the discussion of this broad brush, please. So moving on to the learning objectives, how are humanitarian organisations managed and how do they function? I'd like you to consider the context and the frameworks and look at some of the critiques and the professional paths that have evolved. Then I'd like you to think about the trends that are impacting on our field. In particular, I'd like you to look towards the future and put ourselves on the front foot rather than being reactive. Let's be prepared and be proactive. And the third objective is to introduce a range of tools and techniques and skills around behaviours, learning, strategy, and change management in humanitarian organisations. So the module as it stands, 8 weeks, and we start off with thinking about the context and the overview, and then move on to the basics of project management. These 2 weeks form the first part of this module. We then move on to 3 sessions on management issues, and I'd like you to think about it in terms of concentric circles. In the first instance, it's your self-management, maximising your own potential in this area, then thinking about how we might lead groups in difficult environments, and some of the team management issues, and then lifting it to a much wider gaze and thinking about communication, coordination and control across the breadth of the humanitarian organisations involved in a response. That's section 2. And then finally in section 3, over a period of 3 weeks, we need to think about future trends with a lens on the humanitarian response, but thinking about change in the breadth of approach with macro trends and the power and potential of technology, and specifically how it might impact on health and humanitarianism. So week 1, 2, then weeks 3 to 5, the concentric circles, and then finally we think about the technology and the future. Everybody is very aware that each module is assessed, and I'd like to give you a few words about the assessment on this module. You'll find the essay question in the assessment area on Blackboard, but in essence it is a 2,500 word essay that constitutes 90% of the marks. The submission date for that essay is the 19th of February, 2 weeks after the end of the module. There's also 10% available for engagement with the discussion board. We'd like to see 5 substantial contributions, and to make the assessment more straightforward, please copy the 5 contributions that you would like assessed into your learning journal. But please don't limit your engagement to just 5 contributions. Engage freely in the conversations on the discussion board and then choose the 5 you would most like to see assessed. The material for each week of the module will be opened a week before the start date and will close 1 week after the end of that week to try keep everybody on track. The material will still be available, but any contributions after that closure will be registered as late on the system. So, how to do well in this module? Well, I'd like you to keep in mind we are reviewing how the system works. We'd like you to stay engaged in the discussions. Do use the reading material, but feel free to suggest others that you find particularly helpful around some of these questions. Please do be careful to manage your schedule and workload to keep up to date and on top of things. You will need to consider material from throughout the weeks to properly address the assessment question. So what about beyond this module? I'd like you to be able to reflect on the present environment and situation, but also look towards the future. I'm particularly fond of short motivational quotes such as this one, and I'd like you to believe with me that this is how we should view how things are going to happen in humanitarianism in the next few years. This is another one of those motivational quotes. I'll just give you a moment to read it. We are the people that will make what's going to happen in the future be the shape and style it is. In our readings and our thoughts, I'd like you to be thoughtfully critical, and I'd like you to give you an example on which to base this. In 1992, this was the statement by WHO and UNICEF about breastfeeding in HIV. A few years later, it had evolved, and we were now pushing to minimise breastfeeding by HIV-infected women. A year later, the responsibility had changed and had become a mother's choice. 2 years after that, we should be avoiding it altogether. Nearly a decade later, a complete volte-face, and we're now recommending that HIV-infected mothers breastfeed their babies. Experts changed their view. We should avoid tramline thinking and keep a broad and open mind. We need to remain open-minded, always prepare and plan ahead. That's the end of this introductory presentation. I hope you're looking forward to the module, and I'll be speaking to you shortly on the next session. Thank you very much.